Wimberley Info was created to bring you the inside scoop on everything Wimberley. Not just the mainstream tourist stuff either, but actual local insights. You will hear from ourselves, Trey and Djemilah, the many local business owners, their employees, and sometimes even the poor sap that we sat down next to at lunch, and so much more.
So this guy, Jacob De Cordova, is an interesting guy. He's the one that owned, I was telling you earlier, at one time he and his partners owned 1 million acres of land in Texas.
He literally means 1 million acres.
Yeah. And you say, well, how did he get that much land? Well, Texas had a lot of land, but when they were fighting for independence and the soldiers, they didn't have anything to pay them with, so they would get land. And Cordova was really good at getting donations or go finding those guys and giving them cash or money, some form of tender for their land. Mm-hmm. So that's how they acquired so much land. And he was a bit of a dandy. You see, they say every time he would go to court, he would be dressed up, and for the day. He was quite an interesting guy. Said he was 5'11", weighed 165 pounds.
And he was the man who did a lot of the hand drawing of the maps.
He drew the maps. Yeah. You can see up there the map in his background, and they call him the Pied Piper of Texas because he wrote these books about Texas and drew those maps. And he was, you might ask, well, what's his tombstone doing here instead of at his grave? So that's an interesting story in itself. You can see he was a Mason, so that's the Masonic symbol. He was also in this group called the Odd Fellows. It's the link chain. They tell me that was a group that are still active. I think in Texas, they're up in around Dallas somewhere. But Cordova was the guy that brought that group to Texas. And they were like a benevolent society. You know how a lot of the government, they take care of the widows and the orphans now through different programs. Well, they didn't have that back then. And that's sort of what this group, I think, largely did. So you say it's FLT, and it's over here on the wall, but it's friendship. What's the L? Friendship, love, I think it's love. We'll have to go find
love
it.
and truth.
And truth, yeah, there it is. So that's what the group is. So they're a little bit like, they're not Masons, but it's a little similar type group. So he was actually born in Kingston, Jamaica, and he was Jewish by birth. And his health was a little bad. He ended up going to Philadelphia for his health, but he fell in love with Texas. He died again. Winters died in 1864. Well, Cordova died in 1868. Is that what it says? Here, right here.
Yeah.
This is when he was born. So he was born in 08.
So he was 60?
Yeah, and the Civil War was really hard on him because...
January 26th. That's my birthday.
That's your birthday. Mm-hmm. He died on your birthday.
Yeah.
When he died, he was one of the founders of Waco, Texas. And he was living up close to that area whenever he died. The Civil War, he sold a lot of this land that he had, and a lot of it he sold on credit. And so during the war, people weren't paying their debts much. Everybody was focused on fighting and survival. And so it kind of put him in very dire straits financially. So anyway, he died right after that, but he was pushing projects right up to the end. And where he was buried in this little town of Kimball, which is northwest of Dallas, not Dallas, of Waco. And the cemetery he was buried in the 1930s, there was a movement to develop a lake. They were going to build this Lake Whitney. Somewhere over here it talks about it. Lake Whitney was going to be built, so the cemetery was going to be underwater. So they sort of discarded, they moved his body to the Texas State Cemetery in Austin. So this is his tombstone now. So this one was sort of discarded and left aside. So one of the guys named James Day wrote a lot about De Cordova. He rescued it, and he asked some of the WIC people, would you guys want this old tombstone? And so it sat out here for about 20 years. And then we had a Boy Scout, a local Boy Scout, going for his Eagle Scout award. And this was his project, to move the tombstone in here and do this exhibit around.
Oh, and did he encase it?
When we put it out there, because see how it's cracked?
Yeah.
They put it in this concrete.
Okay.
Back before when it came.
Yeah.
And then when we moved it inside, they just cut the concrete and brought the whole thing in.
And this carving is very intricate. How would they have done that, guys? Was this by hand?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Some of the artisans, the artisans of the day would do that.
Look at that font.
Yeah. Very good. So this is a little bit about, I was telling you earlier about his wife, Rebecca. And there are a number of places around this area. There's a Cordova Creek over close to the Guadalupe. There's a Rebecca Creek over there. There's a Jacob's Creek. Some people think that Jacob's Well was actually named for him too. So a lot of questions about how it was. This is a picture of his place over by between Seguin and San Marcos called, he called his place the Wanderer's Retreat, because he was wandering all over the country preparing to do those maps. So he was an interesting guy for sure. Down in that area, there's another road that cuts through there between Seguin and or between that area where his house was off 46 over to Geronimo over there, and it's called Cordova Road is the name of that road. I just saw that the other day. I was going through there. So very interesting guy.
If you found this episode helpful, please let us know by leaving a review. For more Wimberley insights or to check out our local business directory, go to www.wimberley.info and be sure to follow us on Instagram for daily Wimberley content. If you have a question for us about Wimberley, email us at wimberley.info@gmail.com or message us at wimberley.info on Instagram.